Good evening, everyone. Did everybody get a copy of the notes for tonight's class?
Yes.
Okay. Bella, did you? I imagine you didn't get a copy of them.
I don't think I got
No,
one.
I did not.
Okay, Bindu and Bella, let me see if I can get a copy going here. Just a
Hi,
moment.
Vinab.
Hi, how are you, Didi?
Good, good.
Did you have any trouble finding? Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, oh, nice.
So that was
Excellent.
very helpful.
Yeah, totally. I don't think you sent. Oh, I have it.
Okay. Oh, it's why is it doing it in pages? It's supposed to do it in
PDF.
yeah. It's showing up in. Oh boy. All right. We're in the same situation here always. Let me try and figure out how to do this on iOS. No.
Do you want me to send it to somebody?
Yeah, do you have a copy of it? Do you have a PDF of it?
Yeah, I can send it anyway.
Okay, yes. You want to send it to, let me get you the email addresses here.
Email?
Yeah. So Bindu is Bindu, BINDU, Anand 55 at Gmail. And Bella, I don't have your email address. It doesn't look like.
Oh, okay. It's Bella, BELA, PALLI at
Did you get that?
gmail.com.
Oh, sorry.
Oops.
I'll
Okay,
repeat that.
what is it?
Sorry, one more time, Bella.
Sure. It's BELA,
BEL.
PA, sorry, BELA, PALLI
Okay,
at
At Gmail?
gmail.com. Yes.
very good. So we'll send it out here.
It's coming from my email, which
It's
is
coming from G Fields.
Okay. Thank you.
It's coming in seconds. Here it comes.
I didn't put a subject in it though.
Okay, it's coming without a subject.
That's okay.
I like that.
I got it.
Excellent. And you have it. I think I sent probably a couple of times. So you got it. I noticed that I sent it out, and then so
Yeah,
just
I got it, Maharaj.
all right. Well, the title for it is "Surviving the Play," which means how to make it through this game of life. And I've got a little tiny phone on a thing here, so if anybody here speaks, I'll turn it. That's going to be our professional way of doing it tonight, so that everybody can see each other. If anybody wants to see,
Did you put the owl to sleep?
pictures. Well, it's at home, and I was using it
Oh,
in the
you weren't-
library.
You,
But if we do it here, then we have to get your computer set up.
oh, I see. Okay.
So, all right. Well, the class comes, or the idea comes from this quote or this little story in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, where he's sitting and talking with a room full of practitioners, and he's been talking about this world being the play of the Divine Mother. And Hari kind of brings up the question. It's like, well, if it's a play, if it's like that, then why is there so much suffering in the world? He asks. And the master says, well, this world is the Leela, or the play of God. It's like a game. In this game, there are joy and sorrow, virtue and vice, knowledge and ignorance, good and evil. The game cannot continue if sin and suffering are altogether eliminated from the creation. In the game of hide and seek, one must touch the granny, or your your home base, whatever that is, in order to be free. But the granny is never pleased if she is touched at the very outset. It is God's wish that the play should continue for some time. So this setup, it's interesting to see this world as a game. Uh, it's hard to do, to back yourself out of your identity with it, because you take everything personal. That's what attachment is. You take everything personally. So if your body's uncomfortable, it's very difficult to think of that as different from yourself being uncomfortable. But he's telling us to try and take that perspective of a game. When you think about going to like a soccer game, you're sitting there and you're watching these grown men or women, whoever you're watching, but play a game where they're kicking a ball around a field with trying to get it, into some box at either end. And if you don't let go of your understanding self, that's a ridiculous endeavor, right? I mean, it's silly. It's like there's actually no productive result of it. It's just people kicking around this sphere on a field for a pretend reason, to get a pretend result, to accomplish a defined but arbitrary outcome. And so if you don't let go of that knowledge, then the game doesn't become real. And so that's the reverse setup. You see, it's like, in that sense, it's an exercise to actually get into the game by letting go of your real world knowledge of how ridiculous that is, of how pointless it is, and to kind of join in on the convention so that you can get caught up in the game. It's the same with the movie. You go to a movie, you have to forget you're sitting in a theater. You have to forget that you're watching a screen. You have to forget that all of this is make-believe. And only then do you actually get into the movie. Do you become part of the movie? And so Ramakrishna is here setting up the same example, but it's kind of the opposite. It's like we've already forgotten we're in a theater. We've already forgotten that the movie's playing and that it's not real. We've already bought into the conventional idea of things. So now we have to back out of it. Now we have to understand that this doesn't have anything to do with us. And this is a matter of practice. It's a hard teaching, because I know I worked on it a lot when I broke my leg, back in, I think it was 2008 or something. But to sit there and I mean, the potential for suffering when you've broken anything is significant. I mean, you can certainly focus on the fact that you can't move and that you're stuck in bed and that you can't do any of the things you like to do. And you can pull yourself right under that blanket of suffering by defining it as by identifying very closely with that leg. But in that practice, that weeks of time that I had to sit there and experiment with these notions, it really is instantly helpful. Like if you have an injury, or if you're out, another real good way to do this is if you're out running or doing your exercise, is to for instance, I was walking up and down the stairs to get some exercise one time, and it was on my 6th or 7th time, and I was exhausted. I didn't think I was going to be able to do any more of that. And I was like, I just want to quit. And I thought, okay, well, instead of quitting, let's try some things. And so I imagined my body being a horse, and it was having to climb the stairs, and that I was the rider. And I tried to move my awareness of what I was doing to that state, and becoming aware of the part of me that literally is just hanging out in the mind, kind of watching the body do its thing. And even that little change instantly changes the amount of exhaustion that you feel. Because it removes the sense of I, like I'm exhausted, and it replaces it with watching a body, watching the horse, feeling the horse. And you can separate yourself from that sensation. Another way of doing it is, I remember doing yoga, and we were having to put our hands up and down like this, something like 160 times or something. I think Sushil was having us do that. And of course, after 25 or 30 of them at that time, probably 5 of them after now, but that, it's just like, You know, it gets really tired. And I found that in doing that, because not only did we do this, then we had to do these ones and then these ones, all of those different things. I found that if I stopped involving myself in the movement, stopped being aware of the movement of my arms, and instead become aware of the stillness in me that allowed me to be aware of the movement of my arms, you know, to become aware of the part of me that's not moving. And so I could change where my awareness is sitting. And so instead of sitting in the movement, which is focusing on the exhaustion and the feeling of the arms, and instead sitting in the unmoving, that part of me which doesn't change, that allows me to be aware of change, finding that place, I found that I could almost completely ignore my arms. Like they could be as tired as they wanted to be, and I could sit with my awareness focused on this stillness inside and continue moving my arms long beyond the point where I wanted to quit or stop. And I think the master here is kind of playing in a way with a place like that, wherein we know that all of this is unreal. It's a game. This is a convention. This world as we experience it is an agreed upon convention. We've agreed on what has value, what doesn't have value. We've agreed on what's right and what's wrong. We have social contracts that define us as bodies and minds and our relationships and levels of relationships. And he's saying, try and find the part of you that is holding all of those strings of relationship, but is not those strings of relationship. Try and step out of the movie and become aware of the theater, become aware of your safety, become aware of your non-moving. So and this is touching the granny, you know, and of course, he's telling us here, interestingly enough, you know, that the person, Mother doesn't want the game to end easily. She's having fun, right? And so she's keeping us in the game. There's a story I think it's the Upanishads, but where they say in the beginning of creation, there was no lust and greed. There was just, you know, people just born into the world, and people were just popping out, realizing God everywhere, and the game just kept ending. And Mother was like, well, that's no fun. And so she introduced lust and greed, and she claps her hands and sits back and laughs because the game has been going on with a bang ever since. You know, no, hardly anybody's escaping anymore. And so it's in that context that Hari's asking us, you know, well, what about all this suffering? And so Thakur goes on, he lays out this description, and then he says, you know, to talk about how difficult it is, he says, out of 100,000 kites, so 100,000 people playing this game, at best, 1 or 2 break free. And you laugh and clap your hands, O Mother, watching them. In other words, after the practice of hard spiritual discipline, 1 or 2 have the vision of God through his grace and are liberated. Then the Divine Mother claps her hands in joy and exclaims, bravo, there they go. And so Hari responds very reasonably, what, you know, what the hell? Pardon me. He says, what's going on? Well, this play of God is our death. You know, we're the ones suffering. He's the one having fun. How is this? And the master then brings us back to the true point. Smiling, he says. So even then, he gets the joke. He gets the fun of the game. He says, please tell me who you are. God alone has become all of this. Maya, the universe, the living beings, all the cosmic principles. As the snake I bite, and as the charmer I cure. It is God himself who has become both vidya and avidya. Avidya is the things that bring us toward our knowledge of ourself, toward spiritual enlightenment. And avidya means the going away from light, moving into that which isn't ourself. And basically the practice of vidya and avidya, that's the practice of the yamas and niyamas, you know, the things that take you out of your body are the things that move you toward light. Moving toward oneness, keeping unity as your goal, harmony as your vision. That moves us toward oneness or toward virtue. And the things that take us deeper into the game is focusing on the things that you like, focusing on the things that you don't like, becoming aware of all the particulars, moving into multiplicity, moving into separation is avidya, that takes us away from a knowledge of ourself. He remains deluded by maya of avidya or ignorance. Again, with the help of the guru, he is cured by maya, the maya of vidya or knowledge. And so it's by this constant state. And as all these years in Vedanta, only really in the last few have I understood, not that it's not clear in the scriptures, it's clear in the scriptures, it just was never clear in my head, how fundamentally important this whole practice that we talked about 2 weeks ago, this practice of discernment, that this discernment in ourselves should not be turned off at any time during the day. We should always be paying attention to that which is changing versus that which is not changing. Always being aware that if it's changing, it's part of the game. If it's not changing, it's part of the spectator, part of one of the person in the stand, the person in the safety of the theater. And so to always do that. And when you find something catch your attention, you should become aware of that process. How did that happen? How did that catch my attention? What is it in that thing that made me focus on its particular, focus on its separation from everything else? And, for me, the way that has played out is when I see something that's pulling me, first of all, to become aware of the fact that you're being pulled. That's really what you're trying to get to. The particulars of it really don't matter in the long run. It's becoming aware of the moment that your mind steps out of itself, steps out of the feeling of contentment, right? And my now overused story to illustrate this has always been the day I was walking on Polk Street and smelled pizza, right? I had been walking on the street and it was a beautiful day, perfectly happy, loving life. I was like, oh my God, I'm a monk in San Francisco. Life can't get any better. And then I got down toward Escape from New York Pizza and I smelled that pepperoni in the air. And I was like, oh man, I would love a piece of pepperoni pizza right now. So you see, I step out of the contentment. I step out of like, wow, life is great. I'm totally happy. I smell pizza. Now, at that point, if I had been aware, if I had been doing practice at that point, I would have been aware of pizza pulling me into a sense of need or want or desire. When you do that, then you get involved in the game. It becomes important to you to get pizza, and you feel unhappiness at the thought of not getting pizza. And so you get caught up in that arrangement. If you're doing this right, you become aware that the pizza has pulled you into a samskara, into a memory of eating pizza that has made you desire to do it again. And what you do is you try and remove that desire, return to the part of the day where you were fully happy to be walking down this beautiful street, and you let the smell of pizza become an addition to that perfection. What could be better than just a beautiful day? Well, of course, a beautiful day with the smell of pizza is even better. That's fantastic. But it doesn't trigger the samskara. It doesn't trigger the discontent that makes you want a piece of pizza. That's detachment. When you can take that smell of pizza and not be driven to get a piece of pizza, or even to have the thought of I need pizza or want pizza, that's detachment. That's when you're able to separate the memory, the samskara, the story, from the present. The present is just the smell of pizza. The samskara is the need to eat pizza. And so you step back again. So that's how we detach ourselves. But to detach ourselves, you have to become aware at the moment that the mind gets pulled out of its contentment and gets pushed into a state of need or a state of lack, a state of want. And in order to become aware of that point, it takes a lot of practice and subtle thinking that for most people, certainly for me, it's taken more than 23 years now. So it's a long run of a game, but you get better at it. You begin to catch your mind pulling up these past patterns and pulling you into past cycles of behavior that keep us deluded. Because if we're in the cycle, we're not aware of being in the theater. We're not aware of being in the stands. We're in the game itself. So he goes on here, and this is Sri. We're going to switch to Sri Nisargadatta actually here in this next section on the nature of divine. What's the purpose of this world, and how do we arrive at the idea of playing? So the questioner is asking Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. He says, I don't like this play idea. I would rather compare the world to a workyard in which we are the builders. Oh, this is Swami. I'm sorry. This is Vivekananda, I think here. No, Maharaj. No, it's Nisargadatta. Sorry. He says, you take it too seriously. What is wrong with the play? You have a purpose only as long as you are not complete. Right? Only as long as you are you have the idea that you are not complete. To take that back to that idea of the pizza, right? What I'm out there taking my walk. There's no purpose but the walk. I'm just out enjoying the day. I smell the pizza, fine, but I'm attached to it. It makes me feel that sense of lack. Now I want pizza. Now I have a purpose. As soon as I have that sensation of not being complete or not being content, and that usually comes from body or mind, either a story of mind or a condition of body where it's complaining to you, and you identify with it. That's me that's hungry. That's me that's sad. That's me that's depressed. That's me that's happy. When you set up that I, you step out of the stands and into the game. So he says, you have a purpose only as long as you are not complete. Till then, completeness or perfection is the purpose. It's its own state. When you're out for a walk, you don't have to be walking the whole time. It's just the whole experience, the isness of it. That's the purpose. So, but when you are complete in yourself, when you are fully integrated within and without, then you enjoy the universe, right? I stopped enjoying my walk the moment I decided I needed pizza. And then my purpose became no longer the enjoyment of the day on my walk, but the attainment of pizza. And I always say that I had to walk, that's what creates your idea of the future. Because once you've identified with a need, with a lack, with something that's incomplete, you need a future. You didn't need the future up until that moment because everything was in the moment. You were content. As soon as you're discontent, you need the future because you have to build a story about how you're going to manifest pizza, which isn't present, into the present. And so I suddenly had to start thinking, okay, well, where does a monk who doesn't have any money get money for pizza on his walk? And I remembered, Swami Prabhupada gave me a Christmas card with $20 in it, but it's back on my desk in the monastery. So I have to walk 3/4 of a mile back down the road to the monastery, get that Christmas card from Swami Prabhupada and walk to New York Pizza and have my pizza. And the funny thing is, and this is where we learn continuously, this is why we never turn off that awareness, is because a second delusion happens at this point. That is very important because it is the moment that a samskara forms. When I eat that pizza, the day becomes perfect again, right? And what do I blame that perfection on? Having pizza. But that's a lie, because was I not already in a state of perfection before I smelled the pizza? Was I not already calling the day perfect and what a divine time this was and how beautiful it is? But instead of remembering that and breaking the samskara of pizza on me, I reinforce it by blaming the perfection on the moment on the fact that I'm eating my piece of pepperoni pizza after having been able to go to the monastery and get the money. So you see how the loop closes and then reinforces itself. So the next time you're walking down that street, you might not even smell the pizza. You're going to see the sign on that pizza shop and remember that you still have $10 left in your pocket from that 20 that you spent for the first piece. And it becomes suddenly even more automatic. And you once again blame the sense object for your contentment. When your contentment is separate and apart from sense objects and from the fulfillment of desires, right? All that a fulfillment of desire does is allow you to be desireless for a moment until the next desire forms. And that I've told that story, that Swami that came to lunch and he was telling Swami Prabhupada that he had figured out the nature of desire, because he said the nature of desire is that when you've had whatever fulfillment of a desire that you've had, whatever it is, the happiness that you feel, he says, is not from the fulfillment of that desire. He says the happiness that you feel is that for a moment after you fulfill that desire, you're without desire. And your natural state of bliss becomes apparent to you for just a few moments, because the mind instantly comes up with a new desire to distract you, to give you a new purpose in life, whatever that next one is. All right. And so what we're trying to do here is to be constantly aware of the bliss of our existence that is not conditional. The very experience of being is enough, regardless of the conditions of the body or the mind, And you have to be convinced of this. It's very helpful to meet some of these great sadhus, these great practitioners who demonstrate it. I told you that. I told 2 weeks ago, I talked about that video of the Indian military up in the Himalayas, right? And they're guarding the Chinese border, and they're in the Himalayas. They're like at 14,000 feet or something in this video. There's snow, deep snow on the ground, and it's windy out, and it's overcast, like it's going to snow some more. And they come over this little break, and there's this sadhu, this holy man, in nothing but a loincloth, bare feet, walking through the snow, chanting Shiva's name. And he sees the soldiers, and he, in great joy, comes over and starts blessing them. Shiva, 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 and is almost dancing in his joy as he's blessing these soldiers in their work. And he's standing there, dressed in a napkin, in the middle of winter, in the Himalayas, fully happy, full of joy. Unless we see something like that, it's very difficult to believe the truth of this kind of teaching. You would say to yourself, how in the world could I sit naked out there in the snow and not be cold? How can that just be my attachment? How can that just be an identification? How is that possible? And we dismiss it. But in fact, there are these holy men, these wonderful sadhus who have done this work, the work of the 1 in 100,000 that the mother is singing about here in this song. And so, but that is how it's done, by this constant adjustment, not letting yourself be pulled out of your center of contentment, out of your focus on your own awareness and not the things that you're aware of. That's the big secret, is keeping ourselves established on our awareness and not of the things that we're aware of. The awareness is that one unchanging absolute. It is our divinity. It's the image of God that was placed within us, according to the Christians. That gives us our name. We give it attributes. We experience it as attributes, and we give it our name that belongs to our body and our mind. So he says, but you are complete in yourself. You're fully integrated within and without. Then you enjoy the universe because you're not being controlled by it. The smell of pizza doesn't automatically make you have to take a 1.5 mile trek to get money to buy some. You can just smell the pizza and add that to the perfection of the day. Wow, God, not only do I get to enjoy the sun and the beauty, I get to enjoy the smell of pizza too. What a wonderful thing. And you keep going. So he says to the disintegrated, you may seem like you're working hard, but this is their illusion, because they'll see you fully engaged in the moment, doing what you're doing, and they'll think, look how hard that person is working. But your experience is not of work. You're doing what you love. You're manifesting, right? You're not reacting. You're responding to a universe. So he says, sportsmen seem to make tremendous efforts, yet their sole motive is to play and display in the game, right? So they are putting out an amazing amount of effort, seemingly, down there on the sport field, but they're just playing soccer. They're playing a game. So the questioner says to Sri Nisargadatta, do you mean to say that God is just having fun? That he is engaged in purposeless action? That there's no point to this but to play? Is that what you're telling me? That life has no purpose? And M says, God is not only true and good, he is also beautiful. Satyam Shivam Sundaram. He creates beauty for the joy of it, right? So what he's saying there, if you were a piece of wood, then yes, life would be nothing. There would be no purpose, no point, and the play of God would seem to be completely without anything. But you see, your nature is love. Your nature is wisdom. Your nature is this existence itself. So when you quiet this ego mind, the ego which is formed by the sense of need, by the sense of limitation and restriction, the sense of want, that by becoming, by staying outside of that, we manifest love. We don't go and purposely love. We're not focusing on loving. We don't have to do that. You don't have to become a loving person. You have to not be a not loving person. You have to stop the attachments that make you feel a need to do. And instead of doing to attain or doing to get a result, to get a fulfillment, you do because it's your nature. You're loving because you enjoy loving. And if you practice this discernment that we're talking about, you begin to see that, you understand. I mean, it's common knowledge actually, but not practically common. It's like we all know, everybody hears, oh, it's better to give than to receive, right? And most of the time we just kind of throw that out there, but then do we practice that? If that was the case, we'd be running around giving all the time instead of running around looking to receive all the time, right? How many of us go to the grocery store with the idea of buying somebody else something? We're walking around those aisles. What do I need? What do I need? What do I need? What do I need? Just like we walk around this whole planet all the time. What do I need? What do I want? What do I need? And if we can step out of that mindset, then we can see this as the game that it is. And when we step out of our sense of need, we're no longer driven to attain or grab or accomplish or have. We can then, in our relaxed mind, our relaxed state, just simply be human, be what we are. We'll be able to love because we won't measure the person, that we're talking to. We won't measure the job that we're working on. We'll just be there doing what someone whose nature is Satchitananda would do. So he says, do you mean to say that God is just having fun, that he's engaged in purposeless action? He says, God is not only true and good, he's also beautiful. He creates beauty for the joy of it. So he doesn't have a purpose in this world. This world is God. It's not God doing something. This world is God. You've never seen or experienced anything that wasn't God, that wasn't the Divine Mother. And so this world does not need a purpose. It's simply the manifestation of a principle, the principle of pure love, unconditioned, the principle of wisdom, deep and knowing, unselfishness, love without a reason. And so the questioner says, well, then beauty is his purpose, then. And Maharaj says, why do you introduce this need for purpose? Why does it have to have a purpose? He says, purpose implies movement. It implies change. It implies a sense of imperfection. God does not aim at beauty. Whatever he does is beautiful. Would you say that a flower is trying to be beautiful? It is beautiful by its very nature. Similarly, God is perfection itself, not an effort at perfection. You see, and when they say, when this teacher is saying this, there's an indication going on here, because who is God? That was the question we started, right? When Ramakrishna turned to Hari and said, but tell me, who is God, right? And at that moment, he's trying to say, this isn't some third-party God playing with you. This is you having constructed your whole universe yourself and coming up with your own idea of what it's about and playing at it. And if you can come to know that you are already content, you are already beautiful by nature, you are already loving by nature, you are already enlightened, right? Suzuki, it's one of the first things he says in that book. I always say it. He says, we don't do our practice in order to attain enlightenment. That's wrong practice. We do our practice to realize we are enlightened, to realize that we are the very goodness we seek. We are the love that we seek. We are the wisdom that we seek. We just have to step out of the stories of mind, which are triggered by our samskaras, our past wrong understanding of experience, where we blamed sense objects for our fulfillment, right? Where we've made that mistake over and over and over again. That if we can stop blaming sense objects, or if we can, there it is, isn't that perfect? That if we can stop blaming those things for our fulfillment and get out of that loop that we're convinced of, get that hook out of our nose, as it were, we come to realize we don't need those things. It's quite obvious that we don't need those things. You know, when I went to India, I saw the happiest people that I had met so far in my life. And I also saw the people that had the least. And I really came to that lesson when I saw Swami Rudrapmananda in Rishikesh. He was the first person I ever met that owned exactly one loincloth, 2 mats for a floor, and a book. And that was everything he owned, and a staff. That's all he owned. He lived. There was a rich man apparently that had built all these little kutirs, these little like 6x6 mud huts in the woods, and allowed these men to live in them. And he lived in there. He owned nothing. And when Philip and I found him in the woods, and he invited us into his kutir, and he sat down on that floor and began chanting. I had never heard chanting before that in my life. I didn't know what language he was speaking. And I saw, as he chanted, he became so blissed out and so full of happiness that he began weeping out of the outer corners of his eyes as he sat there kind of going back and forth in his motion as he chanted it turns out that he was chanting the Gita. At the time, I had no idea. But when I left that place, it was one of the reasons that I came back from that trip and joined the monastery. Because I told Philip, I said, I don't understand this. I said, I've spent my entire life playing the game the way I was taught to play it. I've got my degree. I've got my professional job. I've got my car. I've got my house. I've got my friends. You know, I've got all my enjoyments. And I said, in all of my years of experience, and at that time it was only like 30, I said, in all these years of experience, I have never been as happy as this man that I just witnessed, where I could palpably catch his happiness. I was brought to it even myself because of the amount of joy he was having. And I said, he has nothing. He never went to school. He owns nothing. He has no friends. He lives in a borrowed kutir with a stretch of cloth around his waist. This is it. I said, I have to reconsider all my decisions. I have to reconsider what I thought life was about. And that's when it really began. So he says, why do you introduce purpose? Purpose implies movement, change, and a sense of imperfection. God does not aim at beauty. Whatever he does is beautiful. Would you say that a flower is trying to be beautiful? It is beautiful by its very nature. Similarly, God is perfection itself, not an effort at perfection. Now we're going to step into the same conversation, but this one's happening between Swami Vivekananda and Ms. Bell. And Ms. Bell is making a statement about what she thinks the purpose of the world is. She says, this world is an old schoolhouse. We're all coming here to learn our lessons. You know, we hear that quite a bit, right? That's the point of life, learn. We got to grow, we got to change, we got to become. And Swami Vivekananda says, who told you that? Where is that information coming from? See, even that is discernment. Where do your statements come from? Where do your values come from? Where do what you think is right come from? Who told you that? Miss Bell could not remember. Well, I don't think so. I think this world is a circus ring in which we are the clowns tumbling. So he brings it right back to that same idea. There's no point. Clowns tumble. You know, they're being goofy for the sake of being goofy. And Mrs. Bell says, well, why do we tumble, Swami? And Swami Vivekananda says, because we like to tumble. When we get tired, we'll quit. So this, it seems like a light statement, but you know what he just did? He just directly blamed you for your condition. He says, your life is what it is because that's what you want. All right? That's what you're running after. It's not because anything's missing. It's because you've chosen it. This is what you want. You know, I brought up that 2 weeks ago, you know, that weird thing that when I was 7, the idea of eating peas was disgusting. Couldn't stand them. Well, everything's the same. I'm still me. And somehow I love peas. They're one of my favorite foods now. What changed? Did the taste of peas change? You know, what's the difference in it? So it's clearly within my power to like or dislike, right? If you can only catch the moment that your mind makes a judgment and let it step back to prejudgment, when peas were just peas. You didn't like them, you didn't hate them. They just are what they are. So we're going on like this because we want to. We like to. Anybody have any questions? I'm talking. I catch myself just going into lecture mode over and over. Anybody
I have a question, Maharaj.
Yeah, Bindu.
So, you know, amongst all this, I mean, one way you're saying is to catch ourselves, which is utilizing the mind. But it's the mind that gets drawn in to begin with, right? According to its sanskaras.
Well, the mind is always in it.
Right.
Yeah.
But the way to break that, I mean, I feel that is to become that witness. I think to me that, or maybe you're saying the same thing, is if you live in that awareness, which is very difficult to do, but if you live there, then there is contentment, right? Then there is no, there is no, you're not being affected by the sense objects outside. And then the mind is almost, there's no mind at that point in time. So, so I think that's where, to me, everything becomes a leela. It becomes a playground, because in the direst of the circumstances, when there is no answer, then the only answer is that it's a play, right? Because there is no other answer to the problem. And to disassociate and stay within yourself and get the peace from there, to me, that's where that's my ultimate go-to. And maybe that's what is being said here.
Well, there's a couple things about it. One is that it's not a matter of if, then we're content.
Right.
You know, it's that's our problem, is that we view the world like that. We think that it's that way. That if
Right, yeah.
So, we think it's an if situation.
Hmm.
That's why Ramakrishna or Vivekananda says, stop seeking God and see him. If you're seeking him, then you're making the assumption that you're not seeing him, right? And so you're running around looking for God, and that becomes your purpose and your point. But if you begin seeing God, which means you stop looking for him and you just sit there and understand that what you're experiencing and seeing is God, that's going to take you in a very different direction, right? That's going to become something much less discontent and much more discovery oriented.
Maybe that's where my dissatisfaction comes from.
Yes, because if you assume you have dissatisfaction, you've stepped in it already, right? You have to say, look at that dissatisfaction. Where is that? Where is that dissatisfaction? You're going to find that dissatisfaction comes from only two places. Either the body is dissatisfied or the mind is dissatisfied. You are neither of those. So you don't use the words, I am dissatisfied. You always, through your discernment, it's very helpful, and Ramakrishna teaches this, you say it is my mind is dissatisfied. Ramakrishna almost never used the word I. When he talked about himself, it was this place. And for us, that might be a practice at first, but it changes the way you think about it. I remember the first time that I described my depression as being the mind is depressed. When the first time that I did this practice and said, I'm not depressed, I'm looking through a depressed mind, that changed everything. That gave me that little bit of separation that helped me understand that. So it's coming back and emphasizing, Vivekananda says, emphasize the truth. Come back and redefine your moment. When you wake up in the morning, it's always helpful. Run through and remember, I am love itself. I'm wisdom itself. I am pure. I am enlightened. And begin to see the day that way. And when you feel something else come in, catch it. Don't react to it. Just catch it. Become like, oh, wait, what was that? Look, there it is. Where is that coming from? And you use that awareness, that detached awareness, the awareness of your unchanging self that's undefined, to sense where that came from. Where is that information coming in from? Because all of that stuff comes to you. But remember the you and the state of that you before that came to you, before anything comes to you. So in that sense, we're using the mind as one of the two thorns. Thakur Ramakrishna says that if you get a splinter, you take another, or if you get a thorn, you take another thorn and dislodge the first one. And once you get that second thorn out, then you throw them both away. That's no mind. But at this point, we use mind, being aware that we're using a tool, that it's not me. I'm using the mind to perceive the source of my discontent, of what I'm assuming is my discontent, and trying to identify the fact that it's coming to me, which means it's not mine. It wasn't mine to begin with. It was a mood, and mood belongs to mind. It was a hunger belongs to body. And so it's meeting out those details in ourself. So Vivekananda will go on here just a little bit. He says,
thank you, Maharaj.
Surely. He says, because we like to tumble, when we get tired, we'll quit. That's what Thakur says. Everybody's coming home. We're not in a situation that Christianity presents where, you've got to figure this out before you die or it's over for you. Ramakrishna, the Vedanta teaches everybody comes home. There's nowhere else to go but home. God is one without a second. So there is no not God. So he says, when you get tired, when this world is not enough, or you realize that after a lifetime that you're not going to get it. I mean, how many drinks, there's a great game, that great song by the Hanson family, where he's singing to his alcoholic girlfriend and he says, there's nothing in this world that can save you from the bottom of the glass. You know, no matter how much you drink, you're always going to hit the bottom of that glass. It's never going to be enough. And at some point, we get it. At some point, we look around and think, God, I've tried that so many times. And it's temporarily fulfilling. But if it gave you anything, you wouldn't have to keep going back. You know, we're looking for permanence because we're immortal. You know, we're looking for something that lasts because we last. We outlast all of these changing things. And so we're looking to know. So Maharaj says, we're moving back to Sri Nisargadatta now. He's saying, your personal universe does not exist by itself. It is merely a limited and distorted view of the real. It is not the universe that needs improving, but your way of looking, the perspective from which you are starting. The questioner says, well, how do you view it? Maharaj says, it is a stage on which a world drama is being played. The quality of the performance is all that matters. Not what the actors say and do, but how they say it and how they do it. Big clue. It's not what you're doing in life that's important. You know, we have butchers that have realized God. You know, we've had prostitutes that walked with Jesus. It's not what you do that's important, but how you do it. And that how that he's talking about is, can you come from a place where it's a manifestation of you instead of you trying to get something to make you whole or perfect or happy? Can your life be a manifestation of what you are? A manifestation of pure love, a manifestation of pure wisdom, a manifestation in isness, existence. That's what changes the quality. If you're sitting there eating a piece of pizza without needing to eat a piece of pizza, then you can enjoy it much more. You can enjoy it much more because when you finish it, it doesn't bother you that it's gone. Right? So it's not what the actors say. It's not what you say and do. That's not the thing. It's how you say it and how you do it, which means we want love behind it. Make everything that you do or say motivated by love, right? Motivated by wisdom. Motivated by you, by the nature of yourself, and not a quest for something that comes from a sense of imperfection or a sense of want. So I broke this into a few little things here at the end. Know who you are. You're not the body. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, M is talking. He says, I said to Kishori, the box is empty. There's nothing inside. But two men pull at it from either side, thinking that the box contains money. Well, the body alone is the cause of all of this mischief, isn't it? The Gyanis, or the knowers, the Gyanis see all of this and they say to themselves, what a relief one feels when this pillowcase of a body drops off. Right? What a wonderful thing when this body drops off, because it's no longer there to tell you on how unhappy it is, how hungry it is, how sore it is, how tired it is, how all those things, it drops off. And the reminder that something remains when the body drops off. And that's going to be the big adventure. Ramakrishna says those who have come to him in this life, there's no birth, there's no more birth. It may not be because we realize God before we die, but it means that when our body drops off and we realize that we're still here, that there's still an isness, we're not going to be completely confused by that. We're not going to be like, what is going on? And start looking desperately for another body because we've identified with that. So this is that. We are love incarnate. Vivekananda says, no man or woman, obviously, no person becomes purer and purer. It is a matter of greater manifestation. The veil falls away. and the native purity of the soul begins to manifest itself. Everything is ours already. Infinite purity, infinite freedom, infinite love, infinite power. You already have these things. They are already yours. It's a matter of letting the veil drop, trying to find the source of your belief that this isn't true. Trying to find the cycle that you're engaged in that disallows you from experiencing yourself in this way. What have you identified yourself with that isn't perfect? What is it you have identified yourself with that isn't pure, that isn't free, that isn't loving? And when you're able to see that, let go. Let go, so that that which is pure in you can manifest, so that which is loving in you can manifest, that which in you is free can be free. So that's where he's coming from. Now there's a few more notes here, but I'm going to just leave those for another time. Right. This nature of ours reflects in different ways. That might be a good one. Because it's kind of cool what he says. The master says, Sri Ramakrishna says, if a pea falls into filth, it grows into a pea plant nonetheless. This is important because this means you, where you are still the nature of a pea, regardless of the condition of your life. So you don't have to sit there and fret about how awful you are, or how degenerate you are, how deluded you are, or how far you are from realizing, all these things, how unholy you might be. That's not the point. That's all story. That's all the changing. That's all in the mind. Remember that you are a pea by nature, not by development. And the M says to him, he says, yeah, but there's still the 8 bonds. And the master says, they're not 8 bonds, they're 8 fetters. But what if they are? The moment that these fetters fall off by the grace of God, do you know what it is like? Suppose a room has been dark 1,000 years. The moment a man brings a light into it, the darkness vanishes, not little by little. Haven't you seen the magician's feet? He takes the string with many knots and ties one end to something, keeping the other in his hand. Then he shakes the string once, twice, and immediately all the knots are undone. So again, it's it's the magic of the mind that has twisted this story for us. I'll close with Vivekananda's statement here. He says, it is our own mental attitude which makes the world what it is for us. Our thoughts make things beautiful. Our thoughts make things ugly. The whole world is in our own minds. Learn to see things in the proper light. First, believe in this world, that there is meaning behind everything. Everything in the world is good, is holy, is beautiful. If you see something evil, think that you are not understanding it in the right light. Throw the burden on yourself. Whenever we are tempted to say that the world is going to the dogs, we ought to analyze ourselves, and we shall find that we have lost the faculty of seeing things as they are. So it's your mental attitude. You can see this, again, this is discernment. You can see this to be true. The goofy way that I saw it, that I feel like I saw it the first time, was walking down Union Street 2 days in a row. One day I walked down Union Street. This is going to be self-betraying here a little bit, but I noticed people looking at me. And at that time, this was some 20 years ago, my first assumption was, wow, I must look good today. I must have done my hair right this morning or something, so I felt the attention in a positive way. The irony of it is that it was literally like a day or two later, I had gotten this giant sore on my cheek that I had tried to fix, and had made it significantly worse, which I know we've all done. So then I was aware that I had this thing on my face, and I was walking down Union Street, incidentally, in the same place, and had the same experience of people watching me or people looking at me. And my assumption then was like, oh my God, is it bleeding? How horrible has this thing on my face become? So I had the exact same sensory input, the same understanding of my environment, with one subtle difference. I was aware of a blemish on my face, right? And it changed my interpretation. It changed the nature of the world that I lived in. And so this is our constant state. We get into a state without knowing that we're in a state because we're not being aware and not paying attention. And it causes us to see a refraction of the reality, interpreted in a wrong way. We don't see the light pure, we see the refracted light. It has color in it, you know, and we react and we become discontent. And I run out and I buy makeup and I put over my blemish on my face so that I can once again believe everybody's looking at my beauty instead of my blemish, right? So this is the task at hand. This is how we survive the play. Coming back. Comments, questions, challenges, disagreements?
Thank you for putting all that together.
Surely. Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah, I think you keep losing yourself, keep losing that discernment, keep becoming a part of the play.
Yeah. That's the important thing. That's what we're all trying to not forget. You know, we're trying to not forget, to watch, to be aware, so that we don't get drawn in. You know, that line, that circle, that cycle of mind is constantly running. And all you have to do is even have the idea of it being you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sarah, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm just
Oh.
nodding. Yeah,
Yeah. The second, I mean, it's instantaneous,
right.
you know, because I remember one time I read this. So when I first read that book, Beginner's Mind, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and he has that practice in there where he says, you know, to watch the world pass, watch your thoughts pass, but don't identify with them. Don't analyze them or define them. Just let them come and go. And I remember doing that and getting to a place where I was feeling quite nice, you know, and became aware of feeling quite nice. And as soon as I paid attention to the thing I was aware of and took it off of my own awareness, the words went through my head, I'm having a great meditation.
Mm-hmm.
That's the birth of ego. The I comes into it. It attaches to a state of mind. I'm having a great meditation. I owned it. The moment that happened, that sense of bliss was gone. That sense of bliss was gone. The problem with that is that then you go looking for the sense of bliss,
Mm-hmm.
which was only there because you weren't looking for anything.
Yeah.
You see how subtle it is, and that's why we're in such a mess.
I remember when I was in the monastery, seeing a monk visiting. He was a senior Swami who'd been in charge of the French center. He was sitting on our sofa, which was a very plain green sofa. And my impression was that he was soaked in nectar. He wasn't saying anything. I wasn't talking with him. He was just sitting there. It's like you had dipped him in total bliss, just completely content in himself. And it's like when you see a person who's truly desireless, you'll never forget it. I mean, it was unbelievable just to see that. Complete, utter contentment.
Was it Swami Vita Mohananandaji? Is that what was his name?
No, this was a long time ago, probably. I don't know. I forget the name of the Swami. Might have been Ratajananda.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly. But just the impression that he left in my mind without any talk or communication with him on any level other than just seeing him sitting there. It was really something.
Yeah.
I found that a lot of that kind of like from Swami Siridharananda from Australia, Sydney.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's like that.
I mean,
He
he's
is like
like totally like, I mean, there's just like sweetness just drips from him. And
Yeah.
he talks. I mean, I'll share one day the message he sent me. I'd written a question to him and he didn't answer me till a month later. And he's apologizing to me like crazy. He says, I'm so sorry. He was like, totally just, and he sent me a verbal message and I've saved it and I listen to it, try and listen to it every day. But it's just, I was just floored and I still am. I think he's one of the very few Swamis that to me was complete. So.
Very good. I'm getting nervous because I just got a message a moment ago that my phone's battery is low.
Okay. All right. I hope we'll get to see this to receive the video because I'd love to see it again and
Okay. It will go up. I started putting up the Vedic Christianity a couple days ago.
yeah,
So I'll get this up. I remember to record it tonight, so we've got at least that.
yeah, it's a good one to go back and clarify my own.
Can we
Alright.
finish this, Swami, what we didn't get to tonight?
Yeah, we will. We can
Okay.
go through. We'll do it next time as an intro
Right.
to the new
Great.
part. All
Great.
right.
Thank you.
Good to see
Thank you,
everyone.
Maharaj.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Well.
Be well, everybody. Take care.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you too. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.